The term fake news got a lot of exposure thanks to Donald Trump and his 2016 presidential campaign. And the popular song from the 80s, Dirty Laundry by Don Henley, was released back in 1982, 35 years ago, which shows that fake news has been a big thing for quite some time. Most people who listened to the radio in the 80s can remember "Kick 'em when they're up, kick 'em when they're down," because it's repeated so much as the main chorus. The last part of the song, at 3 minutes and 59 seconds, says, "We can do the innuendo, we can dance and sing. When it's said and done, we haven't told you a thing. We all know that crap is king. Give us dirty laundry." Which really adds perspective to all the lyrics prior to that. Not only does the fake news media make their money on negative news, they don't share the real secrets. The negative news of the invisible government has caused a lot of damage. Like Don Henley said, "When it's said and done, we haven't told you a thing." Well, we have to get into that eventually, so we will. And rather than repeating what everyone else is saying, this will be a fresh, new look at things. With new insights through the laws of empowerment, we can shift our lives for the better. How much time, energy, and money has the news media spent focusing on the Twin Towers without telling you a thing? And they certainly haven't told you we have more than 3 Twin Towers a day falling in the form of heart disease and cancer alone every single day in the United States alone. Stephen Jones was the professor who got fired from BYU 16 years ago for dropping the bombshell of 9/11 truth. For the past 15 years, we've been talking about 9/11 being a big distraction and manipulation to start a war. There's a lot of evidence that has been shared right on YouTube. Professor Stephen Jones was the first to challenge the whole story spun by the mainstream news media. He gave a large public presentation, which I was blessed to attend in person, and a public access station appeared live to broadcast his presentation over public access television. He quickly coordinated with many top university physicists who are all experts in their field of science. His presentation was very objective and professional, as you would expect from a mainstream scientist. I walked up after the presentation and told him, too many facts for anyone to ignore. Again, there are tons of videos about this on YouTube, so there are just a few things I'd like to point out. They found a distinctive red thermite dust all over the place, even on bridges miles away, indicative of thermite, which is a military explosive used in controlled demolition. There were distinctive angle cuts on the beams at the base of the rubble in the photos. Thermite is one of the few substances that has the ability to cut through beams that large, hot enough and fast enough to create the results of what happened. Here are some photos of the kind of evidence I'm talking about. Linear charges placed to cut the metal support beams at an angle, allowing the upper part of the beam to slide downward and to the side. Numerous beams in the 9/11 debris were cut at an angle like this. And this photo shows the dripping metal that hardened below the angular cut. The following article is very informative. This article also lists where to find access to databases of thousands of peer-reviewed journals and thus access to the related peer-reviewed literature. The official reports were not produced using the peer-reviewed scientific process. The official reports were produced using a tightly controlled investigation process, not open to scrutiny of the top leaders in all the areas of science that relate to what happened. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, neglected to test for thermite and other chemicals and markers that would indicate it was a controlled demolition. Again, the official investigation report of NIST was highly private and controlled, not peer-reviewed. The peer review process is the actual gold standard of trusted science. Good peer-reviewed studies have more than one university following the same steps to validate the results of each other. The peer-reviewed process doesn't allow for someone to dupe or hoax the public so easily, or spread misinformation from results just anyone claims to have created in their private, unchecked, non-peer-reviewed laboratory, such as in their private basement or garage. With enough money, lots of people will claim to show all kinds of results that are merely fabricated and made up beforehand because they're paid to generate results that the payee really wants to see and is highly motivated to show others. For obvious reasons, the peer-reviewed process is the gold standard of science. People who've spoken up against the story of what the mainstream media has promoted have been labeled conspiracy theorists because of the lack of peer-reviewed science, although it appears that they have more peer-reviewed science than the NIST report. In fact, it looks like the official NIST report has been officially busted over and over. Peer-reviewed studies do not normally contradict every other peer-reviewed study that has ever been published on the subject. They usually support the main facts that have already been proven by countless other studies. Yet, the official NIST report did contradict in a big way, because never before in history have any of these types of large buildings ever fallen in their footprints without the methods of a controlled demolition. Sometimes they've fallen over by fire, like fallen over on their side, but never have any fallen in their footprints. Yet, in one single day, not one, not two, but 3 World Trade Center buildings, number 1, number 2, and number 7, which number 7 wasn't even mentioned in the official 2004 NIST report. We have 3 buildings all fell in their footprints on the same day. Building number 7 wasn't even claimed to have been hit by an airplane, and they now claim that burning debris had fallen or floated over without having any actual proof of that either. When they simulated the scene using jet fuel, they couldn't even raise the temperature half of what it would take to cause the beams to fail. The molten slabs of steel created from melting so much metal so fast were visible from space, and it took 2 weeks for them to cool down to the point they could be removed. They did not allow any outside or peer-reviewed testing during this time, knowing the mainstream media story had been challenged. And as soon as the slabs of steel had cooled to the point they could be moved, they were shipped off to Asia, still without allowing for any chemical testing. Again, a tightly controlled and private process. With so many scientists at our most well-respected universities who were volunteering to perform independent tests, I just have to say it. It appears to me that we all have valid reasons to question the official NIST story. The government didn't make it easy to track down the slabs of steel. No public announcement was made in advance about a plan to move them, and no public announcement where they were going. It took some time to gather what the government calls intelligence, which we now know is just their secrets. at least in this case, to track down the location of the giant slabs of steel formed from all the melted metal of the steel beams. And my point is, when I talked to Stephen Jones at a much later date and asked him about whether thermite was found, he said, they found thermite. So we know those slabs of steel also have the smoking gun of thermite residue, which again is a military explosive used in controlled demolition. Although the masses have been denied the scientific methods to prove the actual science of what happened in the most highly esteemed peer-reviewed process, which is the gold standard of science.